we've talked a lot about, obviously, you can imagine. It's like the Rasmus, does a deal get done?
Yeah.
Probably. He's a UFA.
Yeah.
He's going to want big money, that sort of thing. The other ones that seem a little bit further away to me are the Blake Coleman and Nazem Kadri. They've got deals for next year, and that Coleman's hurt right now, but until last night, leading the team in goals, 13. But still, for him, it's tremendous. They for the most part, have had fine seasons. And I know Pierre was on one of the podcasts out in Ontario talking about Murray Edwards, and he does not want to rebuild. He wants to kind of adapt on the fly or whatever. I don't want to put words in his mouth. And I think for some fans, they think, okay, the Rasmus deal is done. Okay, so now it's Coleman, and would you try? I don't feel that way. What's your sense on whether is this a domino effect, or is this just the impending UFA and that business is done and that's probably it?
So look, I can appreciate what Pierre was saying about Murray Edwards, but I feel like, and this would already have happened by now, Craig Conroy goes to Murray and Maloney and says, all right, as general manager, here's what my plan looks like. And he's going to have to sell them. You know, when you're moving pieces like Andersson, potentially Nazem Kadri, you've got to have a plan in place. And I don't think that Edwards would actually pound his fist on the table and say, we are not going into a rebuild. It depends on how we want to define the word. I think the days are gone, to be fair, of teams taking it right down to the wood and going through a 5, 7, 9-year rebuild. I don't think we're going to see that again anytime soon. So you can retool and you can renovate and you can change and transition on the fly. So I believe Andersson, of course, will be traded. I think there's a strong chance that Nazem Kadri is traded. I do. And, you know, I'm looking at teams that could use a little bit more help up the middle of the ice. Could a return trip to Colorado be possible? I think it's possible. If Colorado just all of a sudden moves a couple of pieces and don't get a whole lot back, then my antenna is going to go up on what might happen with Kadri. Pierre has linked interest from the Montreal Canadiens in Blake Coleman. And I can understand that. I know that Craig Conroy is fielding a ton of calls with interest in Blake Coleman. But guys, at the end of the day, you've got to have players who are going to help you stay competitive and maintain the culture of your organization. And I know that Conroy and company, the Flames as an organization, feel deeply for Blake Coleman and Michael Backlund. So is either player untouchable? No. But if we're talking specifically about Blake Coleman, and if it's interest from Montreal or any other team, you're paying a premium. You're overpaying to move that player out of Calgary because that's how respected he is by the Flames.
It's interesting with Kadri because he had been playing very well, and I mean, you still see him; he's involved. But after last night's game, it's now it's quite a drought. It's 1 point in 12, still leads them in scoring despite going cold for 3 weeks. But the optics look like it's not the same Naz as before Christmas.
Can I add to that? Just our GMs. Is it that bad that a GM that knows the history of Nazem Kadri doesn't know what he's getting? Like, is it so bad that are we watching Nazem and going, "You're done, it's over," or are we watching Nazem Kadri going, "We're not very good, and I'm having a hard time going, and yes, it's not going well for me," and a guy that looks like I need a fresh start? It's not helping Conroy ask for more. No, but he also knows what he has, and so do other GMs around the league, right?
Yeah.
Like, has it gotten to that point where people are absolutely not interested? I mean, you said that.
No, there's interest. Confirmed there is definitely interest in him. What has he got left? 3 years, 3 years after this year? Yeah. So maybe you get creative in that. And if you think of the teams that, again, could use at least a balanced second line center. And I think he's still capable of that, despite the fact that the numbers haven't been there of late. I think he's capable of that. And, he would be motivated, to go to a contending team. I think you get that. But when I say you've got to be creative, I think you have to be willing to accept that, all right, let's bank on this guy for the remainder of this year and the next 2. And then we got to find a way to unload him for that 3rd year. And that's not always easy, but I think that's why if you want to look at teams that are either right on the edge of being a playoff team. Naz would prefer not that. He'd prefer to go to an established contender like Colorado. I mentioned maybe Dallas. Like, Dallas has got Jason Robertson to wrestle with contractually, as he's expiring at the end of this year. But, they've got money to play with, right? Because of injury, and they have a need at center ice. That might be a little bit too much for them because of the term with Kadri, but I know there's interest. And maybe if you get exactly what you need for Rasmus Andersson, I mean, you're not selling off Kadri at a discount price, but maybe you don't feel like you've got to hit the grand slam with both guys, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you can be a little bit more flexible depending on what is actually being offered.
Yeah, my fear with Kadri here isn't like, oh, you've got to get this huge return. It's like you don't want to be holding the bag when he's 38 because he's worth something now. Even if you have to eat some money, maybe you get a little more. But there's a very real probability that he's an unmovable asset very soon. And for a team in a rebuild, you're going to look back and say, man, we could have got assets for that guy. And now it's like, he's 38. And like, there's not many players that are good at 38. Like probably less than 5% in league history are still functional at 38.
And it's supply and demand, fellas. Like, we could probably rhyme off 10 teams in the National Hockey League that need a centerman, right? Yeah. Now, some of those teams have drifted into oblivion. Like I think of the Vancouver Canucks. Well, he's not going to Vancouver.
Right.
I mean, but what about a team like the Montreal Canadiens? Yeah. They're still very much in the playoff conversation. They've got a real sexy prospect pool, of kids that are right there ready to be NHL players. The problem that Ken Hughes might have is, okay, where's Michael Hayes? Yeah. How far away is he from being an NHL player? But think about this. Like, again, if you embrace what I said a minute ago, and you think of Nazem Kadri being really good, or at least good for the next 2 years, maybe that's a real nice transition window to allow a young player like Michael Hayes to come into his own. And then in 2 years, maybe he's ready to be number 2 center in Montreal. I don't know. But those are the things that keep me up at night, is not just the obvious information that I know to be rock solid and sound, but you look for the fits, right? And that's frankly, I'm kind of opening my playbook here a little bit. That's how, guys like me end up breaking news. Is nobody just hands you the information. You got to connect the dots. And so you look at the clubs that would have that type of need and what they have coming. And then you narrow the list down based on what I just described out of Montreal.
Hey, buddies, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Also, if you could throw in a like and subscribe, it does help us out with what it is we are doing. And check out more at flamesnation.ca.